You can book it that every year in fantasy football, there is one, if not multiple, breakout wide receiver ones. You just look at last season. Malik Neighbors in his rookie season. Jackson Smith and Jigba both finished as top 10 options. If you want to look later in your fantasy drafts, it was Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey going in the 8th round. So today, we're going to give you 7 different wide receivers who could potentially finish as the next breakout wide receiver one this year. And Cameron, we're going to start by talking about a guy who we've already brought up ad nauseum this offseason on our channel. We talked about him, and the experts are all wrong about these 6 wide receivers video. We talked about him in our 3rd year breakout wide receivers to target. Rashee Rice. Maybe I'll let you chip in here because you didn't get a chance to talk about him last week when Ty and I did. I mean, he's the clear number 1 candidate on our list here.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about him plenty before last week, so I don't feel like I missed out on it too much. But yeah, it's just the carryover we saw from the end of his rookie season to the beginning of year 2 before the injury is what gets us excited. The fact there is no clear number 1 weapon anymore after we saw Travis Kelce kind of take a step back, now not necessarily volume-wise, but just as the overall explosiveness. And so seeing both those things, it just kind of gets you excited that if this dude is healthy, it really feels like it'd be a shocker if he finishes much below wide receiver 15, and there is a truly clear path for him to be a top 12 wide receiver this year.
Right. And if you want to go back and hear all of our thoughts, like go back and watch those 2 videos. And the thing that Ty and I honed in on last week was, look, you may not have found the Kansas City Chiefs offense exciting or fun to watch last year, but you look at how they pound the middle to intermediate part of the field, that 6 to 12 yard range. That is Rashee Rice in those spots every single time. So if that's how this offense is going to continually be structured, Rashee Rice is just going to get absolutely peppered with targets. We brought up those other 2 pieces of content, but if you want even more fantasy football content this offseason, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you know when all of our newest content is out. This is a place you want to be this offseason because as much as you want to beat your friends in fantasy football, we want to beat our friends, and frankly, I want to beat Cameron in fantasy football too. We love the game just as much as you all, so hopefully you can get some helpful fantasy advice along the way, while also just being reminded of the fun and camaraderie that fantasy football provides. Cameron, let's get into our first real candidate. I shouldn't say real, but one that is a longer conversation. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. of the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I think obviously you look at underdog drafts, you look at his ADP. Ty talked about him as not loving him at his current ADP. I don't remember what episode was exactly, but a couple episodes ago as well. And the reason is it does feel like he's near his ceiling from what we saw last year. But at the same time, if we're talking about guys who could be first-time wide receiver ones, it's hard not to throw in the guy who was a top 5 pick in last year's draft, Marvin Harrison Jr. He had 62 receptions, 116 targets, 885 yards at 8 touchdowns as a wide receiver 29, which was disappointing last year, right? Because you were drafting him higher than people are taking Tet right now. But I think we need to put it into perspective a little bit. 116 targets. Justin Jefferson only had 125 targets his rookie season. Mike Evans had 123. Jamar Chase had 128. Obviously, all produced more on the targets that they got, but it's not like Marvin Harrison was blown out of the water, volume-wise, at least by these guys. Another example I like to bring up a lot, Devonta Smith, his rookie season. 104 targets, 74 receptions, 916 yards, 5 touchdowns, was wide receiver 30. Right, remember, Devonta Smith was a top 16 pick in the NFL draft, right? It's not like he was some scrub that, there were high expectations for him as well. And then in year 2, we saw 136 targets, 95 receptions, almost 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns, wide receiver 10.5 PPR. Am I saying Marvin Harrison is going to make that jump? No, but I'm also trying to just say, just because we saw it last year doesn't mean, he stinks. For me, his rookie season felt Bijan-esque because we were drafting him so high with the expectation that right out of the gate, we were going to get what we saw from Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. And I think those two on top of that really kind of push how we view Marvin Harrison down even more, because you're looking at it and you're like, God, he's not as good as I still think he's extremely talented. I think it's just going to take a little longer. The way he was utilized in this offense last year, 58% of his routes, Ty talked about this. It was a disastrously bad picks in your fantasy draft. Ty talked about Marvin Harrison in that one. And he brought up the fact that he ran a corner, a post, a go, or a cross around 58% of his routes, but his average win rate on those routes was only 12.9%. So almost 6 out of 10 routes he's running, he has an incredibly low win rate. But on slants, outs, ins, digs, hitches, and comebacks, which he ran 40% of the time, his route win rate was up over 30% on those. So you got to imagine that through this next season, they're going to look to get him involved in ways that actually help him. But even if they don't, the progression of who Marvin Harrison is, the prospect that Marvin Harrison is, it's the bet on talent that targets are still going to go his way because this offense, the target share has not changed, right? It's him and Trey McBride. That's it. Could Trey McBride still be the number one target getter on this team? Absolutely. But Trey McBride is going to see 140, 150 targets. So it's not like you're like, oh no, Marvin Harrison's right. He can still go up in targets and still be the number 2. And so that's really what it comes from I think we're overreacting to what his rookie season was. And we just need to remember the prospect that is Marvin Harrison, where people were calling him generational, and bank on him taking that next step forward and not giving up on him after still a pretty solid rookie season.
Yeah, I think a pretty good rookie season is a good way to put a bow on that, because his ADP is just giving us, from last year, just giving us a massive hangover going into this year, because the expectation was that he was going to be a top 10 Jamar Chase-esque kind of rookie season, and it just didn't even come close to that. But like, there's still plenty of hope there. You mentioned the routes in which Marv was running. Like, if they can get him more of those easy outs, hitches, the easy connections, the easy yardage, instead of trying to force him to win on the perimeter, all of a sudden I think you might see the target share go up. Even still, top 5 in end zone targets and air yards last year, high fantasy point producing areas of the field. I just still think there's plenty of room to go up here for Marv. It's just he clearly just didn't come in as polished as we all expected him to be. Like, you could tell there was a jump there for Marv, and we just thought he would jump and clear it with ease. But it took him pretty much all of last year to actually get over that bar.
Yeah, and I think that's something too of, when you look at Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, they are supremely like top 5% athletes in the NFL. Marv is a fantastic athlete, obviously, but he's not a guy like Brian Thomas where he can just, wasn't the cleanest route, I can just rely on the speed to kind of beat you here. And I think that's why you see it take a little bit longer for a guy like Marv than Brian Thomas, where it's, you know what, I can. And to be fair, to both of them, like, I think the Jags did a lot better using Brian Thomas to his strengths than the Cardinals did with Marvin Harrison, which is, again, the one hang up, because obviously nothing has really changed as far as front office and coaching for Arizona. So, we can't bank on, it's going to get better, because we really don't know that. So it is just a bet here on the talent of Marv.
Quick question. What do you have Marv statted out for target share this year? Last year was only 21% target share. Again, Trey McBride is still a thing. We're not telling you Trey McBride is going away as long as Drew Petzing is the offensive coordinator. He's going to make, he's a disciple of the system that makes sure the tight end gets the football. But where do you have Marv statted out in terms of target share this year?
I actually have him ahead of Trey McBride slightly. I have him up at 25.5%. And Trey McBride at 25%.
Yeah, I was going to say, you said 25, and I'm sitting with that number. I have Marv at 25%, and I have Trey McBride at 24%. So, I mean, I think these are two guys who are going to be competing for touches. Marv is never going to be, as long as, again, Drew Petzing is the offensive coordinator and Trey McBride is a part of this system. Marv's never going to be a 28, 29% target share guy. But that 25, if they get him high, productive enough touches, even scoring 8 touchdowns last year, like, it's crazy to think that, he could easily be a double-digit touchdown guy. He could be like a Mike Evans kind of a guy,
for sure,
and give you a top 12 season, no problem next year, if all the chips fall right for him, which I just don't think that's all that unreasonable of an outcome. Even though wide receiver 15, you're probably feeling like, man, could I get burned on that though? Because I drafted him almost this high last year and got burned really bad. I just think there's still plenty of room here for Marv.
Definitely.
We'll move on to also the highest wide receiver taken in his prospective rookie class. I don't know if people are going to like this one. I want to talk about Travis Hunter. I think he could be a breakout wide receiver one candidate in his rookie season. And I honestly don't think this is a hard case to make when you get past the mind hurdle of Travis Hunter playing both sides of the ball. And I understand James Gladstone did come out today, June 18th on a Wednesday, and say that Travis Hunter's usage will, quote, be in terms of one game to the next. Now, I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying with this, but last time I checked, James Gladstone was the GM of the Jaguars and not the head coach who actually makes the week-to-week decisions here. So to minimize Travis Hunter because of this quote, I actually think is just double counting the uncertainty of his splits that's already being taken into effect here. So the upside case we can make for Travis Hunter, though, is that we just saw Liam Cohen produce an offense with top 15 wide receivers last year. I mean, in the first 7 weeks before Godwin's season came to an end, Mike Evans was the wide receiver 14. Chris Godwin was the wide receiver 2.5 PPR formats. And I know both of those players are more seasoned than Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, but like in terms of talent, like you can call me out here if you think this is ludicrous, Cameron. I just don't think it's unfair of a statement to say those two groups of wide receivers are tick for tack, talent-wise, with one another.
Yeah.
We talked about. I'll just say, go ahead, jump in.
No, I was just gonna say I agree. Like it's obviously like there's gonna be nuances, right? It's hard to say like but as far as talent goes, raw talent, Hunter and Brian Thomas got to be pretty close.
I mean, Hunter just plays with. I mean, we talked about his profile extensively on our channel. He just plays with this natural feel, and like you hear other people talk about it, where Travis Hunter would just kind of go out into the field, and they would give him the plays on the field, and they wouldn't like prep him for any game script at the wide receiver position. They say, "All right, here you go. Here's the play. You're going to run this route," and he just has such a natural feel for the game. It's such a fun film study, but I just don't think 80 yards or 80 receptions, for 1,100 yards is like a ludicrous outcome for Travis Hunter this year. And those were Ladd McConkey's numbers last year and Christian Kirk's in 2022, who both finished as top 12 wide receivers in PPR formats. Like, I think that's within the world of outcomes here for Travis Hunter. Like, he's too talented of a wide receiver to not like wide receiver 26. I feel very comfortable with him there because I think he could potentially be a top 12 guy if Liam Cohen schemes this thing up right.
Yeah. It's really hard to bet against him because it's felt like everybody keeps saying, since he kind of burst onto the scene getting, Jackson State, like he's not gonna be able to do it at Colorado, he's not gonna be able to do it now. Like, and he just keeps doing it, right? He keeps showing out, and he's a type of player. We talked about it too. Let's say he only plays 80% of snaps, it's like on the offensive side of the ball, even 70% of snaps. He's a guy that when he's on the field, you get the ball in his hands. And we saw that with Chris Godwin last year, like you were saying, of Liam Cohen knows how to get the ball into his guys' hands. He went to Cade Otton, who was his best playmaker for 2 games on the receiving side of the ball. And Cade Otton showed out with 20 plus fantasy points both games because he said, I have to get this guy the ball. So if Travis Hunter's on the offensive side, you have a play caller who will get him the ball. And when he can have the ball in his hands, special things happen. And especially when you have Brian Thomas, who's just going to alleviate so much pressure from you.
Yes.
It really is not out of the realm of possibilities to see him sneak into the top 12 at the end of the season. Now, when I look at it, I think it's going to be similar to like a JSN or Garrett Wilson, where maybe like points per game, he's probably like wide receiver 18, 19.
Yeah, right.
But on the overall finish, playing 17 games, wide receiver 11 or 12, which is from where you're drafted him, you'd be extremely happy with.
Totally. Well, absolutely. At the wide receiver 26 price tag over on Underdog, where you can draft all these players right now, code fellas will get you up to $1,000 in bonus cash to draft them all with. Again, it's just a price tag where the upside of a lot of these guys in this range, I just think is higher than anybody else on the board around him. So yeah, I absolutely love Travis Hunter. I get people just want to dock him for the uncertainty of the splits. He can't play both sides of the ball. He's going to get gassed at whatever. Like, if we're talking purely the upside case of breakout wide receiver 1, it's absolutely within the world of outcomes. I just don't feel like it's that hard of an argument to make with Liam Cohen now running this offense and this team. We'll transition to a seasoned vet, Cameron. You put this player in the dock, and I literally put in our chat "yuck" in all caps. Because we all know wide receivers break out in their 5th year. You've heard people talking about that on Twitter, right? No, Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos
is
dead. If you know, you know. Courtland Sutton is the guy you want to bring up here. Now, I said you're pretty close to cheating because Courtland Sutton did finish as a wide receiver 13 in half PPR formats this year. But I'm curious to hear your case as to how he can make that last bit of a leap to be a top 12 guy this year.
Yeah, I mean, you saw my first 2 notes. I get it's gross. I understand. You don't have to tell me. Even when I'm in underdog draft, seeing him as the wide receiver 28, I'm still going, do I really want to take him here? I do, but I still
really like him at that price tag.
I'm still really hesitant about it because I'm like, oh, it's just so gross. But
it is.
And I understand, like you said, it is almost cheating because it was almost there. But in points per game, he was wide receiver 23. So that's kind of where I give myself the leniency to say he hasn't broken out yet. But when you look at it last year, I was shocked by this, right? You think wide receiver 13, you see Bo Nix over what he did from the quarterback perspective. You're thinking, hey, these must be some pretty good stats. Well, he only had 81 receptions, which was the second lowest among all top 15 wide receivers in points per game behind Mike Evans. And he actually had a ton of missed opportunities last year. 13th in targets, but only 17th in receptions. 96th in catchable target rate last year at 59.3%. 96th. And he was 90th in target quality, according to Player Profiler. 2nd in air yards. So they threw him the ball a ton, but he was 3rd in unrealized air yards. So he just did not come down with a ton. He had those high quality targets, though. 7th in deep targets, 8th in red zone targets. And he was also 3rd in contested catch rate. So what that tells me is even if we see the same amount of targets next year and Bo Nix can take a marginal step forward where, instead of a 60% catchable target rate, we see 70% catchable target rate, 75%. I'm not saying he's catching 75%.
Right.
But these balls are at least catchable. And we could see him continue to take that step forward. From weeks 8 to 18 last season, he was the wide receiver 7, wide receiver 10 in points per game. He was only 0.1 fantasy points per game during that stretch behind Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. So that just shows you where he was over that stretch. And honestly, before I started looking into it, I was like, I see where he finished. It can't be that great. And then I saw that and I was like, hey, you know what? I feel like there's a little bit more of a case. And we saw Bo Nix at the same time take another step forward. He was a QB6 in points per game during that stretch. I know they added RJ Harvey. I know they added Evan Ingram. But Pat Bryant as your addition in the wide receiver room doesn't make me think that all of a sudden the targets are going to go away from Courtland Sutton. To me, he's still easily your most effective wide receiver on that team. Marvin Mims, if you remember last year, all of a sudden started getting targets at the end of the year. That didn't take away from Courtland Sutton. From week 8 on, his worst game, he had 7 targets. Other than that, he was 8, 9, 10 targets every single game, getting consistent volume. And like I said, getting those deep targets and those red zone shots. Only 1 game under 50 yards during that stretch as well. So he was not only pretty good, but he was consistent, which is something, especially if you're drafting wide receiver 28, that you love to see.
No, I want to go back and clarify something quick before I get into my thoughts. I recognize Courtland Sutton is going into his 8th year in the NFL. Again, it was a joke on the front end, people. Obviously, Courtland Sutton is more than a 5th year player in the league. It was a joke.
It's a joke.
Can go look on X if you haven't seen the context of the joke already, or just ask down in the comments below. Somebody will let you know what the joke is. I think we can just really simplify this, honestly. Bo Nix takes marginal step forward. Courtland Sutton is still the number 1 guy. You got Evan Ingram in, but I'm not going to pretend that Evan Ingram is like this massive target hog.
He's the Joker.
Yeah, he's not going to minimize Courtland Sutton's target share in any capacity,
Exactly.
I don't believe. And they didn't bring anybody. I mean, Pat Bryant, nice player, nice little player. I think Pat Bryant could be some fun in best ball contests this year over on Underdog, but he's the alpha, right? Like, if Bo Nix improves, theoretically, Courtland Sutton's sustainability should remain about the same from this year going into next. I mean, you talked about catchable throw rate, catchable targets. Was that Courtland Sutton's catchable target rate last year? Is that what you were referring to?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say because Bo Nix was sitting like 19th last year, around a 75% catchable target or catchable throw percentage, and the average is sitting right around that 75-80%. But like, if you were to take out the early part of last season where me and so many other Bo Nix doubters on the internet were ready to just like put a pin in it week 3 in the NFL season. It's just like
that first week, it was like, over.
We tried to warn you all that this is what you were getting with Bo Nix, but Sean Payton did his thing and really helped Bo Nix turn it around the rest of the season, and like rather quickly as well. So if Bo Nix comes in a much better place this year and Sean Payton continues to be this quarterback whisperer to get Bo Nix's feet underneath him, it's not hard to see Courtland Sutton upside case finishing right in that wide receiver 10 to 13 range again this year. Like, that's not out of his world of outcomes. I'll say, I don't think it's likely that it happens again. I do worry a little bit. We saw Courtland Sutton kind of peter out at the wide receiver 13 last year, but again, if he stays healthy, if this offense continues to improve, if the addition of a competent run game helps open up the field a little bit more for this offense. I mean, again, it's not a hard case to make for Courtland Sutton to finish as a top 12 guy this year.
No, it definitely is not.
We'll put a pin in it there. I've mentioned multiple times that you can take all these players over on Underdog Fantasy. Let's take a quick break. We'll hear from them now. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back. So far, we have covered 4 different wide receivers who could potentially be next year's breakout wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. Rashee Rice, Marvin Harrison Jr., Travis Hunter, Courtland Sutton are the names we've covered. We're going to go back on the youthful side here, Cameron. How about a second-year wide receiver? The other second-year wide receiver we'll talk about here, Rome Odunze of the Chicago Bears. Ty and I just talked about Rome last week, who's ranked incredibly wrong by experts right now. So you can go check out that video for additional thoughts. But the new and different element that I want to focus on in this episode specifically is something that Ray GQ brought up on Fantasy Football with Josh and Hayden over at Underdog. Rome's route tree last year was full of out routes, hitches, and go routes. We just talked about those outs and those hitches are the easy on-time completions that you can get wide receivers and quarterbacks in rhythm with. DJ Moore last year, primarily go routes, which is fine until you consider the philosophical changes that Ben Johnson wants to make to this Bears offense. How can we make things easy for Caleb Williams? How can we help him play on time and on target? How do we not get cute with things and actually focus on Caleb Williams' development the right way? Not the Shane Waldron way, which is literally disastrous, right? Like, let's get back to the wrong way. Let's get back to professionalism here, right? I mean, it's literally what Ben Johnson has been trying to preach all offseason. You throw those simple and easy timing routes, the outs and the hitches, and that's what Rome was doing last year. And we know he can stretch the field too, but based on how Ben Johnson has already had to get on DJ Moore's case already about body language at practices, and DJ Moore's out here saying like, oh, I don't know, I haven't set any goals. I don't know what my role is going to be. I don't know many times I'm going to touch the ball this year. Like I said it last week, Rome, keep your head down, keep working. Yeah. Like you might just waltz your way into the top of the pecking order here for being Ben Johnson's new favorite toy in this offense. Again, this is such an easy one to make. And I just I'm not afraid by Luther Burden because of the soft tissue stuff. Colson Loveland still coming back from his shoulder injury. They're working it back very carefully with that. I just don't know why we're making this more difficult. That Rome is like the typical prototype of wide receiver that Ben Johnson should want to help develop Caleb Williams with.
Yeah, if you weren't going to take him, I was going to take him because It really is just that easy of, again, you're betting on the talent, but unlike Marv, there is a change here. A significant, I mean, JSN tried to warn us before Shane Waldron got to Chicago of
Everybody
like,
wanted to just try and wipe that away. It's like a meme. It's
yeah,
like, no,
no, he was
he was
serious
serious.
of like, you want nothing to do with this guy as your play caller. And it was exactly right. And again, like I think Rome is another guy. It wasn't a bad rookie season either. He still had 100 targets, still had 50 receptions, still has 700 yards. Like we're just so used to and getting so conditioned to Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors that that's the expectation now for these first round wide receivers. And it's like we just so underappreciate Rome, which is why he's pushed so far down this board. And like you said, he might walk into the easiest competition of any crowded wide receiver room like you could imagine because of just the way everything's starting to shake out already. He was on the field all the time last year. I would be shocked if that changes again this year. I assume Ben Johnson's going to want to establish a run, but I don't think he's going to be able to in the way he wants to, and he's going to be forced to throw the ball a little bit more, which again only helps Rome. So, yeah, all things point to this guy could be pretty good, and if he ends up being the wide receiver one on this team, whether it's DJ Moore gets traded or that's just the role he finds himself in because he is a great talent. Wide receiver one is definitely in fantasy football is definitely not out of the realm of possibilities. Not the wide receiver one being wide receiver one.
Right.
I do want to specify that, right?
Yes.
I don't want you to think that I'm saying he's going to average 25 fantasy points a game because I don't think that's in the cards.
No, I by no means are we predicting that, right? These are all upside cases that we're talking about for these players. Top 15 in routes, air yards, and red zone targets last year for Rome. Again, like we talked about with Marv, the high opportunity for fantasy point targets that you want out of your stud wide receivers. You throw in the routes on top of it. He was on the field a ton last year. So I just don't see how that changes. I just think Ben Johnson starts to utilize him in a more, I'm going to use the word professional way. We're not going to get cute. We're going to get easy completions. We're going to play in rhythm. We're going to develop this offense the right way. It just seems like Rome is like the easiest guy to do that. It's why we loved him coming out, right? He's just so polished and well-rounded. He can play on the outside if you need him to run deep crossing digs over the middle of the field. If you need to get him slants, quick outs, Rome's just the kind of guy who can do it all, right? So we don't need to make this one hard. Year 2 and 3 have higher rates of breakout wide receivers for a reason. We don't have to just look at his rookie season and say, well, it might not happen, because I still think it very, very much can happen now that we have, can I just say, a crap ton of more competence around this offense with an offensive line and a play caller. Like, I'll leave it at that before I just talk myself in circles here. We're going to talk about a couple of guys too, Cameron, that are going outside of the first 6 rounds. We talked about how Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey were both 8th round picks last year, both finished as top 12 wide receivers in half PPR format. So we're going to get a little bit deeper down the board here. You might be like, really? You're talking about those guys as the breakout wide receiver ones, but like it can happen. It doesn't just have to be wide receivers taken ADP wise in the first 20 wide receivers. You start to see some of these guys, between 18 to 30, 30 to 50. Some of these guys actually have a higher rate of breaking out than others. So we're going to get down the board. Your candidates you're going to bring up, I think this might be one that we disagree on, but I'm curious to hear your case on Jayden Higgins.
Yeah, it's, again, like I've been saying, it's a bet on the talent. I believe in who Jayden Higgins is as a wide receiver. He's a big body guy. I understand they already have Nico Collins, bigger body wide receiver. Nico's more explosive. He's going to already be the downfield threat. But I think one thing that CJ Stroud has shown is that he's willing to kind of use multiple guys in the same role. As a court, we saw that with Tank Dell, Nico's first year where he kind of broke out in 2023, where he's a wide receiver 12. Tank Dell still being used down the field in similar ways. Obviously, Jayden Higgins, very different wide receiver just physically than Tank Dell. I mean, 6'4" versus 5'8", 214 versus 160 pounds. Very different. But even last year, first 5 games before Stephon Diggs got hurt, Diggs was a top 12 wide receiver. Is Jayden Higgins Stephon Diggs? Absolutely not. Right. I'm not saying that either. But what I'm saying is Stroud has shown in spurts. It's hard to say that he has shown overall because his wide receivers keep getting hurt on him, but has shown in spurts that he can have 2 top 12 guys. They're bringing in, why can I just looked, I didn't write
Nick
it down.
Caley, offense
Nick
coordinator.
Caley. I don't know
Yep.
why I'm struggling with his name every time.
What's him and
over
Josh Grizzard? Those are the two
Yep.
that I keep mixing up. And it's Grizzard's in Tampa, Caley's in Houston.
Yep. And so brought over Caley for the Rams. Rams threw the ball a lot, had a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. So it'd be interesting to see, do they move Higgins to the slot every once in a while? Like, how do they use him on the outside in tandem with Nico? But he figures to be the guy in these 2 wide receiver sets down there, right? With Christian Kirk, who's been more, especially getting later in his career, he's being relegated more of a slot guy. Jaylen Noel, who was pretty strictly a slot guy in college.
Yep.
He figures to be the guy that's on the field the most. And this offensive line sucks. I mean,
they completely revamped. I mean, it was really bad last year, but
one of their revamps is bringing in Ed Ingram, who the Vikings didn't get rid of fast enough, right? So that's what I'm saying is sure they revamped it, but they just went from bad to bad. I'm not if you're expecting this Texans offensive line to take a big jump, I'm sorry, you're going to be in for a rude awakening.
Yeah,
and we love Joe Mixon, right? We've talked about drafting Joe Mixon a lot, but to think him and Nick Chubb are going to be efficient by any means is definitely something that you're going to be far off of again this year. So they're going to have to throw the ball to score, to move this offense. And I think if, CJ Stroud, we can kind of see him bounce back a little bit. I think Jayden Higgins could be a big, recipient of that. Obviously, we're talking about a guy going as the wide receiver 52 right now. So I understand.
Overall, we're talking.
Yes. I mean, it's a long shot to begin.
Is that 8th round, 9th round?
That would be, 9th round.
My math. Yeah.
9th round. So we're talking long shot to begin with. So I understand. I'm not telling you that I think it's necessarily going to happen, but if I look at these guys here, I do think even with Nico, he, at least for me, I can see the path for him to get there.
So this is an interesting one because this is going to be a really weird comparison. Just roll with me on it. This feels a lot like the Dallas Cowboys running back room, where people are going to want to attack ambiguity, but they're not sure the method in which to do it. Do you take Javonte? Jaden Blue's kind of the fun new little piece, but 6th round rookie. It could have just ended up being Miles Sanders. You just take the cheapest one out of all of them, and Miles Sanders ends up getting some run, looking better than Javonte. Maybe this after Nico Collins, it's Jayden Higgins, Jaylen Noel, and Christian Kirk are all yeah, I kind of just want to try all of them because it could be any one of them that breaks out here. So this could be one where you're I just want to run towards this and I want to pick one of them. And I think it could be Jayden Higgins. You also have Nick Caley, who you brought up. I mean, comes over from being the Rams passing game coordinator last year. He knows how to be influenced by funneling 2 wide receivers the football. I mean, he's been around the Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp times where they've coexisted together. That's extreme upside. I'm not sitting here and telling you that Jayden Higgins is going to be Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua to any extent. Mm-hmm. But if you're talking an upside case, could it be Jayden Higgins out of this trio? Yeah, he has the best draft capital. Probably has, debating on how you want to look at Christian Kirk's contract, the most invested into him. It could be Jayden Higgins. I just think it's Nico Collins, and we'll figure the rest out from there. I just don't have any strong feelings on who it actually is between Higgins, Noel, and Christian Kirk.
And I think that's fair. I mean, that is the thing. Is it for me? It feels most likely that it's Higgins, but at the end of the day, he could just be another Keon Coleman this next season, right? If he needs another year in the NFL, he's not quite ready. I mean, that's why we're not betting on him more than we already are. So yeah, I mean, I think there's for sure, he feels like he's kind of a boom bust player to me. If he hits the ground running, I think it could be awesome. If but he might come in and just be one of those guys that needs time. And you're looking at a Quentin Johnston, Keon Coleman-esque rookie year.
Yeah, I mean, and as much as I love Jayden Higgins coming out, He could easily just be one that needs the time. I mean, a lot of these
Yep.
rookie wide receivers, man, just Marv did, right? We just
Yep.
talked about how Marv needs the time, and
Mhm.
Jayden Higgins could easily be one of those cases, despite how much we love him as a smooth route runner at 6'4", coming out of Iowa State. But the last question I'll maybe ask, and not ask, it's more of a rhetorical question, but I'm curious what the personnel splits will look like for this offense. Will it be a crap ton of 11 like the Rams were running last year, or with how bad, how poor this offensive
Yeah.
line is built out right now? Like, do they run more 12 and get another tight end on the field to help out with blocking? So I'm curious to see how the personnel group shake up here. And if Nick Caley's is coming over and it's like, nope, we're going to run 11. We're going to throw the ball a ton. We're going to spread it out. Or, yeah, are they going to consolidate and get another tight end out there to help with the blocking, get CJ Stroud some more time to actually throw the football? Run a few chip routes, get some easy completions too. Who knows? That's just a question that I don't think we can actually answer right now. But we may learn a little bit more as the offseason goes on. I'm just gonna talk about another rookie wide receiver because these are the kind of players I'm looking at in this range, and I think if there's anyone who could be a breakout wide receiver one, it's probably gonna have to be a rookie in this range, because a lot of these guys are either like seasoned vets or I think they could break out, but can they get to a wide receiver one breakout, right? Like a Khalil Shakir. I don't think the role in which he fills in the Buffalo Bills offense can get him to a wide receiver one, top 12 kind of a range. Josh Downs playing with a Daniel Jones. I noticed the fact I love Josh Downs this year. I think he's a great value. I think he could break out in the grand scheme of things, but top 12, I don't know if that's quite within the realm of possibilities. I don't know if I believe in that as strongly as I do a guy like Matthew Golden, taken in the first round, 23rd overall by the Green Bay Packers. Again, this is another one where I really don't think it's hard to make an upside case here for Matthew Golden, because go ahead, type in Green Bay Packers wide receiver depth chart for me on Google. You can look at this with me. Jaden Reed is pigeonholed to the slot. It can't get on the football field enough times to be a wide receiver one, top 12 guy. Romeo Doubs hasn't proven to be an alpha. I mean, he's getting buried on Underdog right now. He's going in like the wide receiver 60s range. I'm scooping up a lot of Romeo Doubs. That's a different conversation. And then Dontavian Wicks is everyone's darling until he's given an opportunity. And I mean, I'll spare the rest on that one. Right. Hey, I was going to spare it, but you said it, not me. But why can't it be Matthew Golden in this wide receiver room? This team wants to take advantage of Jordan Love's gunslinger mentality. Like, Jordan Love, he doesn't scoot. He's not just like your average pocket passer. He's not like a precision guy. He's a gunslinger, man. He wants to take chances. He wants to push the ball downfield. They do that by either dropping him back or running play action to open up the middle of the field. Matthew Golden's route tree is all about posts and digs, man. Per Matt Harmon's charting over at Reception Perception, phenomenal subscription. Go subscribe to that. Not a sponsor affiliated in any way. Just love Matt Harmon's work over there. The digs and post routes were Golden's top two routes by frequency and success rate in college. So while LaFleur doesn't like to funnel all of his targets to one player, like that's the number one knock you can give me here, is that LaFleur isn't going to funnel enough targets to Matthew Golden to make this happen. I just find it hard to believe he's not going to fall in love with how Golden can open up this offense by getting him big chunks of yardage over the middle of the field, which you get him enough of those, like, it's in my Doctor Strange, like maybe 4% outcome that it could lead to a surprising breakout wide receiver one finish. The capital is there in the first round. I love the offense. It's debatably the best offense to walk into out of all the wide receivers who went in the first round this year. I kind of like the fit here with Green Bay the more I've looked at this and evaluated this over the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it honestly, like we were just talking about it with Houston, it feels like the same type of thing of they just don't have an Nico Collins. So could you step up to be the one, or is it just a messy you guy? I mean, that again, it's just attacking it. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It really feels like, why wouldn't you be taking a shot on this Packers offense, and why wouldn't you take the shot on the guy? Him and Jayden Reed going back to back. Why wouldn't you take the shot on the guy that is going to be on the field 100% of the time?
Yeah,
because that's the frustrating part about Jayden Reed is he's just like we talked about, he's just not on the field, so you just can't expect a lot from him on every given week. And so, yeah, does he have a lot of downside? Yeah, I think he does, because
Oh
we
yeah,
saw it.
yeah,
You know, we just didn't see enough at Texas to know that, hey, he was worth the 23rd overall pick.
yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, gunslinger and Jordan Love, if he figures it out quick, we could see, a pretty, I mean, honestly feels like for me, if Chris Olave had a good quarterback, his first 2 seasons, I think Chris Olave is still a better wide receiver, but
I
I
agree.
think he's in that little, like, he's Chris Olave-esque to me.
Sure, I don't mind that at all. Yeah, and again, that's another knock you put on Matthew Golden here. I mean, the production profile wasn't there in college. The dominator rating wasn't there in college. The things you typically want to look for in successful wide receivers taken in the first round of the NFL draft, like Matthew Golden just didn't have any of those. He was like potentially the biggest question mark wide receiver first round wide receiver, excuse me, that we've seen in quite some time. And that's without hindsight being 2020 on Jalen Reagor and guys of the sorts, right? Like
Exactly.
it's risky to pick Matthew Golden here, but man, this Packers offense is good. Matt LaFleur is going to have a lot of fun actually having an explosive weapon on those post routes, on those dig routes, getting him open across the middle of the field. You have Josh Jacobs in the run game. Like, teams know that this team can run the football too. If things pan out, if all the chips fall perfectly for Matthew Golden, maybe we don't get to top 12, but man, could we be getting top 15? I think that's obviously even more likely. It's not as high as 12, but even thinking about it, you could process your way into this, where there's a world where Matthew Golden finishes top 15, knocking on the door at top 12 at the position.
Yep, for sure.
Let us know your thoughts on all these players down in the comments. Some of these guys we talked about, you might be like, yo, you serious? Really? You forgot to talk about this point. We hear that from you all a lot. So we appreciate hearing all of your thoughts, the things that maybe we glossed over, or the things that the counterpoints that neither one of us brought up that didn't spark a lot of debate, whatever it may be. We enjoy hearing from you all in the comments. So let us know your thoughts down below, and who you're anticipating breaking out to potentially be a wide receiver 1, top 12 wide receiver in fantasy football this year. You can follow us on our socials as well. FFL is on Twitter. The FFL is on Instagram. Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. You can follow our shorts page as well if you just want to stick over on YouTube. Fantasy Football Fellas Shorts, if you want to get our content there as well. Personal socials, I am at Lucas Wenzel on X. Camlaw FFF for Cameron. What else do we want to plug here? We're going live every week. We're going live twice a week right now.
Yes, we are.
If you want to get your mock drafts in, if you're already craving mock drafts, Mock Draft Monday, Cam and Ty are going to be mock drafting with followers on Mondays. We stream those. Want to have some fun with you all, fill out those draft rooms. You can join our Discord to get first dibs on those drafts. If you want to go draft on Underdog, by the time you get this video, Cameron and I will have been live the night prior. I'll be bringing on some fun guests here coming up as well to draft over on Underdog, where it's real people drafting with real money for big prizes, as you heard about from Underdog. So you can tune into those live streams as well. We'll be back next week. We're going to talk about bounce back players and sleepers. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you next week. Deuces.